So continuing from our last video, we're in the process of creating a t-shirt for the art museum. And one thing I wanted to show you, in case if you were following along, you may have noticed this yourself, that when I hide the background, oh no, there's purple everywhere. So that is because our solid fill, it's throwing purple everywhere. Anything that's black, because it's using color, it's going to disappear because the black is going to show over the purple. So a simple solution, we are going to put our design into a folder. I'm going to call this the Art Museum. Okay, and then I'm going to right click on the Art Museum and I'm going to convert to Smart Object. So this is so cool. In the past, the older versions of Adobe, you would have to highlight all your layers and then you would either put them in a folder and copy it, and then you would have to merge them all together, and it's called flattening. Now, you don't have to do any of that. You can just group everything together in a folder and convert it into a smart object, and it works as if it's just a flattened image on your layer. So pretty cool. So, and here's the nice benefit that I can do with this now. If I hit Command and then mouse click, or it might be Control if you're on a PC, so there, all my elements are selected. Now I can go here and I'm going to inverse. I just hit Shift Command I to inverse the selection. Let's see. Let's get my foreground. So, and then what I can do is hit Option Delete as long as the foreground is black. And what that will do is I can now knock out everything that's not in my design. And so there you go. Now this is properly configured to be printed out onto a t-shirt. However, I have some interesting news to give you. I got a call from the art museum today, and a guy by the name of Guido said he is now my main contact. Apparently things didn't work out for Johnny, so now I am working with Guido. Okay, he seems like a nice guy. He is a bit of a stickler though. He says that they decided they want to get rid of the Mona Lisa. What? Yeah, they love what I did. They like the concept, but they just want to see this design reimagined without the Mona Lisa. So just all text. Okay, let's get started. So now I'm just going to undo. Now a really cool thing, if you're working on a project and you're just kind of experimenting and you get so far into it that you can't undo anymore, or you're running out of memory and you're like, I just want to go back to the way it was when I first opened the program. Funny you say that, because you can go to File, Revert, and I use this all the time. It's a great way to open up a file, experiment, do whatever you want to do with it, and then you just revert it back. So, and then if you do happen to find you stumble into something awesome, then obviously you can either keep a copy of it or just keep working on it. So now what we're going to do is we are going to remove the Mona Lisa from this file. And actually what I'm going to do is, just for my own sake, I'm going to call this Art Museum 2. Just so I don't go over, in case in the future for whatever reason I want to go back to this file. It's always good to have backups of your Photoshop files. So we're just going to delete the Mona Lisa. And again, we lose our fill layer. That's fine. We'll just go back to everything being just black and white for now. I'm going to delete all this here, and basically we're just going to start kind of from scratch with this design. And I didn't want to do that. That's fine. We'll just keep it like that. So now we got everything in a nice folder. We have our top typographic elements and then our bottom ones. And so I'm just going to group these together and call it, we'll just call it logo. So they didn't give us a logo, but we'll just call it logo because it's easier to remember. Actually, what am I doing? Okay, this is really cool. So what you can do, you can hit Command A or go to Select All, and I'm going to highlight all this, hit V to get the moon tool. What I'm going to do is center everything. There we go. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select Group, okay, and then I'm going to center that. So, oh, that did not work. So probably because I need to select the group. Okay, so I highlighted the group, I have auto select group, I have my selection on everything, and I'm just gonna center that. So I'm gonna move this up just a little bit higher, like that. This looks kind of plain. I don't know. It doesn't have the same effect that it did before. I think the big thing that's bugging me right now is this font. I think I want to play around with different fonts. So one of the places I love to go to for fonts is Google Fonts. These are all open source. They're free fonts that you can use. As a web developer, I use them on websites all the time, and they're super awesome. Prior to Google Fonts, you were kind of limited with the type of fonts you used, or you had to use a paid service. Google Fonts came and they made web development 1,000 times better. So luckily, the nice thing about these fonts, you can also install them on your computer. So they are used everywhere. A few things to know about fonts. They're primarily categorized as serif and sans serif. So you can see these are all serif fonts. And all serif means is that at the tips, they kind of extend a little bit or have like just a little decorative element at the ends. And so that is serif font. These are generally used they work really well for reading. You'll find that in a lot of books, they tend to use serif font for just if you're reading large amounts of type, because they help flow with the eyes. And then the other main category is sans serif. They're more kind of blocky, and they don't have those little decorative elements at the end of the edges, as you can see. And so these sans serif, they tend to be great for titles and big headers. And so I tend to use sans serif a lot for my t-shirt designs, but I don't think there's a rule. It's really just your taste. It's really just finding the right font for whatever theme or design you're trying to go after. It's a big topic. People can spend years talking about typography, but ultimately I think it comes to taste. Also the use of fonts, going back to the principles of design. You know, everything we talked about with the principles of design, negative space, unity, emphasis, flow, all those apply to typography as well. With type though, letters do combine into words, and words turn into paragraphs, so you kind of have another layer of abstraction to think about with fonts. So what I'm going to do, there is a font that I think I'm going to try using, and it's called Roboto. I was going to use Roboto Condense, but I think I kind of like this. So let's just see what it's going to look like here. So it looks like that, and then that should be art history. I get an idea of it. It is kind of blocky, but I don't know. Let's go with it, because I could spend hours and hours contemplating on what is the perfect font. Okay, so I clicked on it, and you can see it's right here. Now, how do you install it? So you can download it here, or I use a program, and Google actually recommends it, called Skyfonts, which is pretty awesome. So with Skyfonts, it's an application, and I'll show you it real quickly. Skyfonts, it's right here. So it is an application that you can download on your computer. They have it both, I believe, for Windows and Mac. So once it's installed, it's essentially a font manager. It's a great way for managing your Google fonts. Let's go back here, and the font we were using was called Roboto. So let's go back here, type Roboto, and there it is right there. And so what you can do when you see the font that you want, you can go and you can download the entire family. And that means that you have all the various weights. So you can do bold and thin or thick or italic. So not all fonts have an entire family. Some fonts are just standalone, but a lot of the most used fonts, they have an entire family. And so those are the ones I like to use. Click that. There we go. And it is added. So just by clicking on that, it is now added. It's installing the font right now. We'll just wait a couple seconds. Great, it is now installed. So now when I go over to Photoshop, I can look right here, and let's see here. We're going to scroll down. Roboto, it's right there. One cool thing with Photoshop, you can highlight all your layers that have typographic objects, and you can change the font for all of them at once. So that's pretty cool. And so we're going to use Roboto for this project. Here we go. Right there. So we're going to use the top one. Oh, perfect. So we'll start with thin. Okay, I love art history. And actually, I'm going to change the logo to Roboto as well. With this, I want to create kind of a cool typographic design. Photoshop is pretty awesome when it comes to typography. I will show you some of the cool things you can do. Okay, so what are some cool things you can do with fonts? Let's just work with I love. Suppose we wanted this to be a curve. What I can do is I can click on here, and this gives me a series of warp text tools that I can use. So this is arc, and you can see here kind of have an arc right there, maybe put a heart in the center, so that's kind of cool. This kind of gives it a weird bulge at the bottom, so it's very similar to an arc, but the arc happens at the bottom portion, and then the opposite for the arc upper, as you can see. And then you can do a few more if you want that. You can do fish eyes, and then down here you have settings on how strong you want your bend to be for that. Let's see here. Let's go with a little bit of an arc, and we'll make it super bold. Okay, so we're going with that. I love. And then we're going to have art. I really like that art. It's kind of cool. And we will make this. If we did that bold, that's probably going to be too strong. What if we did it thin? Just so we have a little bit of contrast. This character panel right here, you can set your type, and then if the type is a family, you can decide what width you want it. So we have that at thin. I can change that to light to make it just a little bit thicker, but right now I'm kind of digging the thin. This right here is your what's called your leading. If you had multiple rows, for example, art, happy. Okay, so what you can do with this is that you can control the line height. So we have really large type, so I probably have to set this to like, let's see, we'll try 12,000, and then from there I can make it go up by 100 points, and you can see it's getting larger and larger. So that's line height. This right here is your kerning. So this is the spacing between words. So this right here, it's kind of a thick font, it's kind of arc. Let's see what happens if I kind of crunch them together. It might give me a desired effect, or maybe not so much. It depends on your project, what you're doing, the font, and how you're using the font. What if I gave it a lot of spacing? Let's see, we liking this. I don't know, it seems a bit too much, but I kind of like what it's doing. Okay, let's just try it. And then we'll go to art. Okay, we have the opposite going on here. And then let's just make it really, really big. And maybe overlap. I don't know, that's kind of cool. Let's go right here. Now, another cool thing you can do with this, so I hit return, is that if you set your cursor here, if you hit the Alt option and the arrows keys left and right, you can control the individual kerning between each letters. Now this is super powerful. This is typesetting at its best, is when you're just going through and you're working with the spacing between multiple letters. So right there, I'm kind of seeing it's even. I kind of like that. And I'm just gonna put this right under here. So I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but we'll see what turns out. Now this, I think I want to go back to maybe 0 and kind of crunch it together and then have it centered, and then I'm going to make it small like that. Okay, so that's cool. And then what I'm going to do is go to history. There's our history. And so I can kind of do this. That's kind of cool, kind of give it a base. It doesn't really flow with this too well. Now what if I had this to black and then I added an arc to this? So let's find out what happens. And so we have our arc, and instead we're going to bend in the opposite direction. So it goes kind of like that. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to center all of it. Okay, there we go. And let's see here. So with I love you, we have 0. For history, we have 0. Okay, Cool. Now what I'm going to do is kind of shrink history so it matches a little bit of I love you. I'm going to hit Command R for the ruler. This pulls out your rulers, and then I'm going to just move my guides, and I'm going to place it right here. I'm going to place another guide right there. There we go. You kind of see what I'm going for. I don't know. It feels a bit too symmetrical. We'll just run with it for now. And then we got this guy down here. We'll make him bigger. Is that too much? I guess we can make it small. And then what we'll do with this, we are going to go for thin, or should I go, oh, that looks nice. I really like that. And then I think something like this, I might want to put some spacing in there to kind of give it a bit more elegance. So that looks cool. I'm really digging that. And what we're going to do is hit our guides up here. Make sure it is centered. So I'm loving this part. I'm not liking this, and I don't know what to do with it. Either we can go for a different font, maybe go thin, see if thin would work. What if it was more even? Regular? Or medium maybe? I don't know. Maybe we can play with a different font. That's a new font I downloaded the other day called Water Lily. Let's see here. This guy. What if we did Water Lily? Is that going to be too weird? Yeah, that is kind of weird. History. Papyrus. No, I don't want that one. I don't know. I'm thinking I stick with this one. But maybe not. What else can we do with this text? History. And what if I did back to 0? If I did this kind of bulge here. Actually, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to change this to upper arc. I'm not really digging any of this. Bear with me while I figure something out. So that's okay. I think this is, let's see here, what can we do with this? Move this up. Let's see here. So how about we give it some color? And here's how I'm going to do that. I want this to be a rainbow because I think that would look cool. And the way I'm going to do that is put a gradient color. I'm going to do the rainbow here. All right. Okay. All right. And then we're going to set this to about 135. Okay, right there. All right. Then what you can do is include that. All right. I kind of like that. I would like to get a little bit of red. Let's see if I can do that. Just a little bit. Maybe I need to reverse the colors. Maybe that would help. Okay, I'm kind of digging that. I like how the colors there work. And then what I'm going to do is brighten it up just a little bit. Let me just brighten this just a bit. You can see how it brightened it just a little bit. All right, so then we got love. What can we do with love? Love's kind of cool. Let's see here. Why don't we make love this color? Is that cool? That one? Let's see, I'm trying to figure out what would be a good word for love. Okay, let's do this. What I'm going to do, the This will all make sense in a second. Bear with me. So there's actually easier ways of doing this, but decided to do it this way. So now we got all our shapes there. And what I can do is actually there we go. So that's kind of cool. And then what I can do, I can change the opacity to brighten it up to kind of make it a little softer, really subtle. So that's one way you can color text. The only problem with this method is that if I decide to change the text in any way, that would interfere with my color scheme. But I'm not going to worry about that for now. And then for this, how about we just make it kind of one unified color. We'll kind of brighten it up a little bit. Actually, I like the saturation when I want some brightness. And then the saturation will kind of get closer to white. See, if I go all the way to there, it's white. Alright, kind of give it that, and then I don't know, this is kind of bugging me now. I feel like this needs something, but no, I know we can keep it like that. So I'm just giving you some examples, and then what we can do here, we can do this. So gradient, I hit G for gradient, and by the way, I'm just 100% experimenting with this, and we can have our rainbow gradient. Actually, I want it a bit more, a wider range of colors. There we go, that's better. And then what I'm going to do is select a mask, and then I just fill it black, and I'm going to get my paintbrush, and let's see here. Let's try this one. Let's see what kind of stuff we come up with. Let's make it big. I'm just going to hit it once. Oh, I need to select white. So this is going to do, so you can see what it does here. So let's see. What if I kind of, okay, what if I don't want the donut shape? I want maybe something a bit like that. Oh, that's kind of cool. I like that. All right, so what if we went really small? No, we definitely want to go large. We want the splatter. That's really what I want, is the splatter. There we go. Okay. Now, what I would like to do, so I can darken it. What if I set the opacity and kind of darkened it? Now, this might look cool, but it doesn't always print well with merge. So just be aware of that with this. I kind of like this. This is cool, but we got to figure out how we're going to use it. What if this was that color and we turn this, we turn that off? What if we just turn that off? So that's kind of cool. Now, what if I selected this, there we go. That's kind of a cool effect. I'm kind of digging that. So what I did was I selected this layer mask right here, and I inverted it and placed it here, which means that anything inside of this circle is going to be white, anything outside is going to go back to the rainbow. So it kind of creates a cool effect. I don't know if you can see it too well. If that's the case, I can see about thickening this. So yeah, I think it works a lot better with the stronger font. But if I go black and really just make it super bold, that kind of kills the design a little bit. Maybe the medium was better. I like the way this R is. Gosh, I might just do light. So let's see here. So this love, maybe I make it want a little bit more contrast. So maybe I'll just kind of. So I had to select both layers to get this going. I'm at a point where I'm looking at type more as a painter as opposed to anything else. Like I'm doing things as what artistically makes sense and looks interesting. So I'm not digging this, but what if I added a stroke? So I can go here and add a good old stroke. So that kind of pumps it up. Black. What if it was white? Ooh, that doesn't work too well. But, okay, so this is kind of cool. With any layer, when you add an effects to it, so let's see here. Let's add our stroke back in there. So strokes works when there's a lot of contrast, not so much when the colors are similar. And that's what's happening right here, but I'm going to, we want it to be just pure white. And let's see what happens when we extrude the content. Now we have this stroke right here on this layer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the fill down. So what that's going to do, it's going to erase everything but the stroke. So that kind of gives it an interesting effect. And then at this point, all the letters, they seem kind of squished together now because I added a stroke. So maybe I want to bring them apart so it's a little bit more legible to read. It's kind of hard to read, but it makes an interesting design. Let's see if we can strike a good balance where it remains interesting. So completely different vibe from what we had before. In fact, we completely just changed the design altogether, which is fun. It's fine. See here. I don't know. I'm kind of digging this. I think this is cool. But it could just be me. I don't know. I might need a second opinion. Alright, what if I made this black? Just so there's contrast. And then it acts kind of like an overlay over it. So that might actually help it stand out a little bit more. Yeah, that does. Okay. So that's what I did. So that's it without the stroke. You can see it's just kind of barely there. Well, that's a cool effect too, actually. Oh, let's play with this. This is how designs are made. So what I'm going to do, let's go back to our brush tool. Inverse that. I hit Shift X to invert your foreground and background color. So wrong layer selected. This. Alright. Now we can do this. We need white selected. There we go. I kind of lose that cool splatter effect. I really don't want to lose that. So maybe I need to make it bigger so it's got more of a splatter. Not digging it. Alright, I think I kind of digging this one right here. And so the stroke is a little strong. Maybe I can make it a little bit thinner, and that would help it out because it seems to be competing with the word art. Art museum's getting lost. We need to take care of that. So what can we do to take care of that? I think a simple solution would be create a second rectangle, make this black. There we go. Okay, so that doesn't get knocked out anymore. I think that works. I'm kind of digging this. Now, this love here, the I love art history, maybe we want this on a circular path. The way this is set up isn't really working for us right now. So I'm going to hide this. We're going to remove that. And this right here, we're just going to hide this for now. So if you hold Option and Shift, that will expand the circle from the center of where you first clicked your mouse. And then also it'll make a perfect circle. So if I let go of the Shift key, then it would warp into an ellipse. So let's I guess right here is good. And then if you need to move around, you can push the space bar, and that'll allow you to move the circle around. So if I let go of it, it'll expand. And then if I press the space bar, I can move it around. And then again, I'm holding Shift and Option or Alt. So I'm just going to leave it right there and let go. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to have horizontal type. And when you mouse over a path, you can see the icon changes, and that's when you know that you're going to have text on a path. So there we go, text on my path, and I'm going to say I love. Now it's really small, and let's fix that. So let's see here. So if you mouse over these little icons here, and if you ever see these like little arrows, you can actually just click and drag these, which is really cool and handy. And let's see here. Why isn't our type showing? There we go. That's our text on a path. What we can do here. So I selected the path selection tool. I'm going to move this just a little bit there. And so this is where it gets kind of buggy working with Photoshop. So with Illustrator, this kind of stuff is a little bit smoother. Photoshop does do the job. So we're going to leave that. And what if I made this into a really, really thin font instead? I'm kind of liking this better already. I kind of like this. I think it's cool. I think I'm going to stick with this. The only thing I don't like is that this R right here is kind of, let's see here, you know, I think I might add a little bit of a tiny splatter to this R because it feels like it's too white and it feels too, and it's centered, and I'm not really digging that. So I'm just going to click there, maybe there, give it a little. And I think that might work. Let's see, go smaller, smaller, smaller. And I'm just kind of giving it some micro texture, I guess. This is a little bit of a dent, so the R doesn't look so smooth. That was kind of bugging me. There we go. And then I'm going to switch it up. Yeah. And kind of give it an artistic flair. So that's a bit too harsh. Like, I really want this to look cool. There we go. That feels a bit more. Yeah, it seems a lot nicer. Sometimes just being really subtle makes a big difference. See, that killed it. Alright. I'm kind of digging that. So there we go. I love art history, the art museum, and that's our project. So let's quick and see what this looks like. I think it's ready to get sent to the printer, and then what we can do is put this in our merch template to make sure this is the right size and the right positioning on a shirt. But after that, I think we're done. Okay, and that's a quick intro to typography with Photoshop. Ooh, one more thing I'd like to say. One more little thing. Another thing you can do, and this is kind of similar to what people do with Illustrator. You can take your font, your type object, and if you right click here, you can convert it. Well, you convert it to a smart object, so that allows you to put filters on it, which is pretty cool, and do all the fancy stuff that we've been doing with other smart objects. Or you can convert to shape. So what convert to shape does, it transfers from a type object to a shape object. So there we go. Now it is a shape object. So I can no longer change the typing of it, but I do have control to change the vector points because it's a shape object. So if I click here, you can see, and this is kind of what Illustrator does. Well, that's why I'm saying that if you're starting out, just stick with Photoshop because it does a lot of what Illustrator does. And so at this point, suppose I want the V to be kind of wonky looking. I can then extend these points, and I got a V that totally doesn't match the design. And I don't know, maybe it does. So there you go. It kind of looks like a paper airplane just by messing with the vector points. I can do the same thing with the owl if I wanted to. So what you want to do, you want to select Path Selection Tool and then select your element. And why isn't it selecting? There we go. And then I can kind of, oops. Maybe I need the Direct Path tool. There we go. Yeah, it's the Y one. And then I kind of messed up my L. But again, if I wanted to, I can totally mess with the shape of the letters here just by converting it into a vector shape as opposed to type. So I don't know. That's kind of interesting. I wonder if I don't know. I'm this actually didn't come out as bad as I thought it would be. So they're not as stand out as much. It's kind of cool. And then what if I change the opacity? It doesn't stand out as much. That actually might work better for the design to make it really subtle. This kind of looks like a paper airplane to me. It's kind of funny. Not sure if it applies to art history. This would probably work for another theme. So one thing as a graphic designer is that when you create something, commission work, or you have a paid client, you have to explain why you did what you did, your reasoning behind it. Part of being a graphic designer is having the ability and the vocabulary to properly defend your decisions, your artistic decisions. So a professional graphic designer, they wouldn't just slap this together and be like, I love it, it's great, I hope you love it too. No, they would kind of go into, well, the colors, they maybe represent all the paints in the palette. History, maybe I made it dark to show that it is something of the past. And art, I want it to emphasize art because that is the most important thing. And I have a contrast of both color and white, also on a black background. And that, again, kind of makes a bold statement for art. And then I wanted that to be subtle because I didn't want to draw emphasis to it. But at the same time, it's there so people, they know it. They can identify and it draws them closer. Something along that lines, just to give you an idea of what a graphic designer would think. But I think that also applies when you're making t-shirts. So you can make a t-shirt, it looks pretty, put it up on merch. If you don't have your right keywords, a specific niche, you're targeting a specific purpose, then, just having something pretty, people are going to have a hard time finding it. And then when they do find it, they might find it pretty, but there might not be enough reason, a compelling reason for them to want that shirt. So I just kind of want to throw that out there. And that concludes our class on typography.